Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Aurora's edge, watching the stars through the main window. His ship was far from Earth, mapping new star systems near the edge of human space. The crew had been working for 3 months without seeing another human ship. Space was big and lonely, but that was the job. "Captain, we're getting some strange readings," said Lieutenant Commander Lisa Grant from her station. She was the ship's tactical officer, responsible for weapons and defense. Her fingers moved quickly over the control panel and her face showed worry. "What kind of readings?" Jake asked, walking over to look at her screen. "Energy signatures. Big ones. Coming from the next system over." Lisa's voice was tense. "I've never seen anything like this before. The power levels are massive." Communications Officer Ben Clark suddenly looked up from his station. His face was pale. "Captain, I'm picking up transmissions. They're not human." Jake felt his stomach drop. First contact with alien life was supposed to be handled by special diplomatic teams, not a simple mapping ship like his. "Put it on the main screen." The bridge filled with a harsh electronic voice speaking in perfect English. "Attention, primitive species of Sol 3. You will receive this message simultaneously across all your worlds and vessels. I am Admiral Zexthera of the Hegemony Empire." The main screen flickered and showed an image that made several crew members step backward. The alien was tall and thin, with gray skin that looked like metal. Its eyes were black holes in its face, and when it spoke, rows of sharp teeth showed. It wore a uniform covered in symbols that seemed to move on their own. "Your species has been observed and evaluated. You have 7 of your standard days to surrender unconditionally to the Hegemony Empire. You will disarm all military vessels, abandon all weapons, and submit to Imperial rule. Your leaders will kneel before our representatives and accept your place as subjects of the Empire." Jake looked around the bridge. His crew of 30 had become dead silent. Everyone understood what they were hearing. The alien continued speaking. "Do not mistake this for negotiation. This is your only warning. Any resistance will result in the complete destruction of your species. We have eliminated thousands of civilizations that chose defiance over wisdom. Your primitive technology cannot stand against the might of the hegemony." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in terrible silence. "Ben, are you recording this?" Jake asked quietly. "Yes, sir. Everything is being saved to our main computer and backup systems." Lisa was working at her station again, her face focused and serious. "Captain, I'm detecting massive ships in the nearby system. At least 50 vessels, each one 10 times larger than our biggest battleships. Can you get detailed scans?" "Working on it." Lisa's hands moved over her controls. "Captain, these ships are armed with energy weapons I can't even classify. The power output from just one of their vessels could destroy an entire planet." Jake felt the weight of command pressing down on him. His little mapping ship carried vital information that Earth needed to know, but first they had to survive long enough to deliver it. Danny set course for Earth. "Maximum speed," he ordered the pilot. "Captain," said Engineer Nicole Davis from the back of the bridge, "at maximum speed, it will take us 4 days to reach the nearest human outpost. That leaves only 3 days before their deadline. Then we better hurry." Jake sat down in his captain's chair. "Lisa, keep scanning those alien ships. I want to know everything about their weapons, their speed, their weaknesses." "Sir, what if they don't have any weaknesses?" Lisa asked quietly. Jake looked at her seriously. "Then we better hope someone back home is smarter than we are." The Aurora's edge turned toward human space and jumped to faster than light speed. Behind them, the alien fleet began moving toward Earth and the human colonies. On Earth, emergency meetings were starting in every government building. President Amanda Foster sat in the Situation Room with her top advisors. The alien message had reached every human world at the same time, causing panic in the streets. "What do we know about these hegemony people?" she asked. Admiral Ryan Blake, head of the Solar Defense Force, looked grim. "Nothing good. Our deep space listening posts have picked up fragments of their communications over the years. They've conquered hundreds of worlds. Species that resist them simply disappear from the galaxy, And our military strength? Against normal opponents, we're strong. Our newest battleships are fast and well-armed. But based on the energy readings we're getting from their fleet, they outgun us by thousands to one. Dr. Kate Sullivan, head of the Terran Research Division, spoke up. There might be another option. We've been working on some experimental projects that could change the balance. What kind of projects? President Foster asked. Weapons based on theoretical physics. Ways to manipulate gravity, space-time, even quantum fields. The technology is dangerous and mostly untested, but it's our only chance against superior firepower. Admiral Blake shook his head. Experimental weapons against a proven galactic empire? That sounds like desperation. It is desperation, Dr. Sullivan replied. But desperation sometimes leads to breakthroughs. President Foster looked around the room at her advisors. These were the smartest, most experienced people in human government, and they all looked afraid. That scared her more than the alien threat. How long do we have? 6 days and 18 hours, Admiral Blake answered. Then we use every hour. Dr. Sullivan, I want everything you have on these experimental weapons. Admiral Blake, start moving our fleets into defensive positions. Make it look like we're preparing to surrender, but be ready for war. And if the aliens are too strong? Someone asked. President Foster's voice became hard. Then we make sure they remember fighting us. Far from Earth, Captain Jake Morrison watched the stars rush past his ship. Somewhere behind them, an alien fleet was preparing to destroy everything he had ever known. His small crew carried information that might save humanity, but only if they could reach home in time. The race was on, and the stakes were the survival of the human race. Dr. Alex Turner wiped sweat from his forehead as he worked in the underground laboratory. 5 days remained until the alien deadline, and his team had not slept in 36 hours. Around him, scientists and engineers rushed between computer terminals and strange-looking machines that hummed with dangerous energy. Maya, what's the status on the gravity field generator? Alex called to his weapons engineer. Maya Rodriguez looked up from a device that seemed to bend light around itself. The calculations are working, but the power requirements are insane. We need fusion reactors just to run one small test. We don't have time for small tests, Alex said. Dr. Sullivan wants results, and she wants them now. Dr. Chris Bennett, the team's physicist, walked over carrying a tablet full of equations. Alex, I've been thinking, what if we're approaching this wrong? Instead of trying to build bigger weapons, what if we make weapons that don't follow normal rules? What do you mean? These aliens conquered hundreds of worlds using normal physics. Energy weapons, kinetic missiles, particle beams, all the usual stuff. But what if we hit them with something that breaks the rules entirely? Alex stopped working and looked at Chris. Keep talking. Gravity doesn't just pull things together, it bends space and time. If we can create a strong enough gravitational field in a small area, we can make a weapon that literally deletes things from existence. Maya looked up from her work. That sounds incredibly dangerous. It is, Chris admitted. But so is letting aliens wipe out humanity. 3 levels above them, Admiral Ryan Blake was coordinating the biggest military movement in human history. Every available ship was being positioned throughout human space, but not in the way anyone expected. Sir, the fleet commanders are asking questions, said his aide, Captain Ellen Price. They want to know why we're scattering our forces instead of concentrating them for defense. Because concentration makes us predictable, Blake replied, studying a holographic map of human space. The aliens expect us to gather our fleets around Earth in major colonies. Instead, we're going to be everywhere and nowhere. Captain Mark Thompson, commander of the battleship Vengeance, appeared on the communication screen. Admiral, my ship is in position near the Jupiter mining stations, but I have to ask, what exactly are we positioning for? Something the aliens won't expect, Blake said. Trust me, Mark. When the time comes, you'll know what to do. On Mars, Governor Sam Peters was organizing something the government officially knew nothing about. In mining tunnels and abandoned facilities, civilians were preparing for a war that might last generations. Remember, if the aliens take our worlds, they think they've won, Sam told a group of colonists. But humans don't give up. We'll fight From underground, from hidden bases, from anywhere we can find. Make them regret every day they spend on our worlds. A young woman named Kelly raised her hand. Governor, what if their technology is too advanced? What if we can't hurt them? Sam smiled grimly. Then we'll learn. Humans are good at learning, especially when our lives depend on it. Meanwhile, Captain Jake Morrison's ship was racing toward human space with vital intelligence. His crew had worked around the clock to analyze the alien fleet's capabilities, and what they found was both terrifying and useful. Captain, I've completed the analysis of their ship designs, Lisa Grant reported. Their vessels are built for overwhelming firepower, but they have some interesting weaknesses. Such as? They rely heavily on energy shields for protection. Their hull armor is actually quite thin. Also, their ships seem to be designed for fighting enemies that use conventional weapons, meaning they might not be prepared for unconventional attacks. Communications Officer Ben Clark looked up from his station. Captain, I'm picking up transmissions from the alien fleet. They're intercepting human communications and seem confused by our ship movements. Confused how? They keep asking each other why we're not massing our fleets for a traditional defense. One of their commanders called our strategy chaotic and illogical. Jake smiled for the first time in days. Maybe that's exactly what we want them to think. In his secret laboratory, Dr. Turner was preparing for the first full-scale test of their experimental weapon. The device looked like a metal sphere covered in glowing lines, small enough to fit in someone's hands but containing enough power to level a city. Everyone clear the test chamber, he announced. We're going to find out if this thing works or if it kills us all. The sphere was placed in a reinforced chamber a mile underground. The target was a block of steel 10 feet thick. When Alex activated, the device reality seemed to hiccup. The steel block didn't explode or melt. It simply stopped existing, leaving behind a perfectly spherical hole in the air. Did we just delete matter from the universe? Maya asked, staring at the impossible sight. I think we did, Chris replied, checking his instruments. The atoms didn't break apart or change into energy. They just aren't there anymore. Alex felt a chill run down his spine. We've created a weapon that doesn't destroy things. It makes them never have existed in the first place. Above ground, President Foster was meeting with leaders from every human colony. The video conference included governors, admirals, and scientists from across human space. The situation is simple, she told them. In 4 days, the most powerful military force in the galaxy is going to try to destroy us. We have 2 choices: surrender and hope they're merciful, or fight with everything we have. Governor Peters spoke up from Mars. What are our chances if we fight? Honestly, very small. But Dr. Sullivan's team has developed some new weapons that might give us an edge. What kind of weapons? Asked Admiral Blake. Dr. Sullivan appeared on screen from her laboratory. Weapons that work by breaking the laws of physics instead of following them. We're not ready to explain how they work, but we can demonstrate what they do. The screen showed a recording of the test. Every person in the conference fell silent as they watched solid matter simply disappear from existence. How many of these weapons can you build? President Foster asked. With 4 days, maybe 50 small ones and 10 large ones. Not enough to arm our entire fleet, but enough to surprise the aliens. Admiral Blake leaned forward. Dr. Sullivan, these weapons could change everything. Not just this war, but the entire balance of power in the galaxy. I know, she replied quietly. That's what scares me. President Foster looked around at the faces on her screen. These people represented every human world, every colony, every military unit. In 4 days, they would either be free or extinct. Then we're committed, she said. We fight with everything we have, including weapons that shouldn't exist. God help us all. As the meeting ended, Captain Morrison's ship finally reached the edge of human space. His message to Earth was simple. The aliens are coming with overwhelming force, but they're not prepared for the impossible. Use that advantage while you can. The countdown continued. 4 days until humanity's survival would be decided by weapons that broke the rules of reality itself. The alien fleet arrived 2 days early. Massive ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of human space, their dark hulls blocking out the stars. Fleet Marshal Corvani stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the human, colony world of New Dallas through the main viewer. Admiral Zexathera, begin the demonstration, he ordered. Show these humans what happens to those who defy the hegemony. On New Dallas, Colonial Administrator Tony Miller watched the alien ships appear in orbit above his world. 2 million people lived on New Dallas, most of them farmers and miners who had never seen a war. Now they were about to become the first victims of humanity's defiance. The alien admiral's voice echoed across the planet's communication systems. People of New Dallas, you have one final opportunity to surrender. Lay down your weapons and submit to hegemony rule, and your deaths will be quick. Tony Miller stood in the colony's command center, surrounded by his staff. His hands shook as he activated the planetary communications array. This is Colonial Administrator Tony Miller speaking for the people of New Dallas. We will not surrender. We will not kneel. We are human, and humans do not bow to tyrants. The response was immediate and terrible. Energy beams struck the planet's capital city from orbit. Buildings that had stood for 100 years turned to vapor in seconds. The city's center became a lake of molten glass, and 200,000 people died in the first minute of the attack. Message received, Fleet Marshal Corvani said coldly. Begin the advance to Earth. Let every human world see what defiance costs. Light years away, Admiral Ryan Blake watched the destruction of New Dallas on his command screen. His heart felt heavy as he saw the glowing crater where the city had been, but his voice remained steady. All units begin Operation Wasp Nest. Attack pattern Delta 7. Make them remember us. Across human space, warships that had been hiding in asteroid fields and behind moons suddenly came to life. Captain Ellen Price's cruiser emerged from behind a gas giant and fired its main guns at an alien scout ship. The human weapons barely scratched the enemy's shields, but that wasn't the point. All ships hit-and-run tactics only, Blake ordered. We're not trying to win battles, we're trying to buy time and gather information. Captain Mark Thompson's battleship Vengeance attacked an alien supply convoy, destroying 2 cargo ships before jumping away. The aliens responded by sending a squadron of fighters after him, but Thompson's ship was already gone. These humans fight like insects, complained one of the alien captains. They strike and flee before we can respond properly. Fleet Marshal Corvani studied the tactical displays. Their strategy is primitive but annoying. Increase our advance speed. The sooner we reach their homeworld, the sooner this ends. On Earth, Dr. Alex Turner was loading the last of his experimental weapons onto military transport ships. 50 small devices and 10 large ones, each capable of deleting matter from existence. It didn't seem like enough to stop an entire alien fleet, but it was all they had. Are you sure these things will work in space combat? Asked Maya Rodriguez, watching the weapons being carefully secured in their containers. We're about to find out, Alex replied. The small ones are designed to be fired from standard missile tubes. The large ones need to be deployed by specially modified ships. Captain Jake Morrison had finally reached Earth and was being briefed on the new weapons. His ship, the Aurora's Edge, was one of the vessels chosen to carry the experimental devices into battle. Captain, your ship has been selected. Because you've seen the alien fleet up close, Admiral Blake explained. You know their formations and tactics better than anyone. With respect, Admiral, I've seen them destroy a planet. I'm not sure how these new weapons will help against that kind of power. Dr. Turner stepped forward. Captain, these weapons don't work like anything the aliens have ever seen. They don't destroy targets with energy or kinetic force. They simply remove them from existence. Jake looked at the sphere-shaped device being loaded onto his ship. And you're sure it's safe for us to use? Define safe, Alex said quietly. These weapons break the laws of physics. We're not entirely sure what the long-term effects might be. The alien fleet was now only 6 hours away from Earth. Long-range sensors showed hundreds of massive ships approaching in perfect formation. Admiral Blake stood in the Solar Defense Command Center, watching the displays and preparing for humanity's last stand. Sir, the alien fleet is demanding our surrender. reported Communications Officer Ben Clark, who had been transferred to Earth after Jake Morrison's ship arrived. "Put them on screen," Blake ordered. Fleet Marshal Corvani appeared on the main display, his alien features cold and emotionless. "Humans of Earth, this is your final warning. Your pathetic resistance has only delayed the inevitable. Surrender now and some of your species may be allowed to live as slaves." Blake stepped forward. "This is Admiral Ryan Blake of the Solar Defense Force. We have a message for you too. Humanity doesn't surrender. We don't kneel. And we don't forgive." The alien commander's expression didn't change. "Then you will die as your colony world died. Begin orbital bombardment of Earth's major cities." The transmission ended and Blake turned to his staff. "All units execute Operation Thunderstorm. Launch everything we have." Captain Morrison's ship was part of the first wave of human vessels to engage the alien fleet. His tactical officer, Lisa Grant, had targeted one of the smaller alien destroyers with their experimental weapon. "Firing quantum disruptor," she announced. The weapon activated, and something impossible happened. The alien ship didn't explode or break apart. It simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there. The next moment there was empty space where a 1,000-meter-long warship had been. "Did we just delete an entire ship?" asked Danny Walsh, the ship's pilot. "We didn't delete it," Lisa corrected. "We made it so it never existed in the first place." On the alien flagship, Fleet Marshal Corvani stared at his tactical display in confusion. "What happened to Destroyer 47K? "Unknown, sir. It simply disappeared. No explosion, no debris, no energy readings. It's just gone." "Impossible. Ships don't just vanish." But even as he spoke, another alien vessel disappeared from the display. Then another. Human ships were using weapons that violated every law of physics the hegemony understood. "All ships concentrate fire on the human vessels," Corvani ordered. "Destroy them before they can use these impossible weapons again." But the human ships were fast and hard to target. They would appear, fire their reality-breaking weapons, and vanish before the aliens could respond. Ship after ship in the hegemony fleet simply stopped existing. Captain Morrison watched as his small fleet of 12 ships faced off against hundreds of alien vessels. The odds were still impossible. But for the first time since the crisis began, the aliens looked confused and frightened. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the alien flagship," Ben Clark reported. "Put it through." Fleet Marshal Corvani's face appeared on screen, but his cold confidence was gone. "What manner of weapons are these? How do you make matter?" "Cease to exist?" Morrison smiled grimly. "We're human. We don't follow the rules." The battle for Earth's survival had begun, and for the first time in galactic history, the hegemony empire was facing weapons they couldn't understand or counter. The question now was whether humanity had enough impossible weapons to win an impossible war. The hegemony fleet had lost 30 ships in the first hour of battle, and Fleet Marshal Corvani was beginning to understand that he faced something new. His species had conquered the galaxy using superior firepower and technology, but the humans were using weapons that seemed to ignore the laws of physics entirely. "Sir, our sensors cannot detect how their weapons work," reported his science officer. "The ships don't explode or break apart. They simply stop existing. There's no energy discharge, no particle emissions, nothing our instruments can measure." Corvani watched another of his destroyers vanish from the tactical display. "Concentrate all firepower on their largest ships. If we can destroy their weapon platforms, we can end this madness." But the human ships were not fighting like any enemy the hegemony had ever faced. Instead of forming battle lines or protecting key vessels, they scattered across the solar system and attacked from unexpected directions. On Earth, Dr. Alex Turner was working with his team to activate the largest weapons they had built. These devices were too big to mount on ships, so they had been placed throughout the solar system over the past few days. "Maya, activate the asteroid field generators," he ordered. "Let's show them what happens when we turn rocks into weapons." Maya. Rodriguez typed commands into her computer, and hidden devices throughout the asteroid belt came online. Suddenly, Chunks of rock and metal began moving at impossible speeds, accelerating to near-light velocity in seconds. The alien fleet found itself under attack by asteroids that moved like guided missiles. When the rocks hit the alien ships, they didn't just cause damage. The impact points aged rapidly, turning new metal into rust and dust in moments. "What is happening to our ships?" demanded Admiral Zexthara. "The projectiles appear to be creating temporal distortions," his science officer reported. "Where they strike, time moves faster. Our hull plating is aging decades in seconds." Captain Jake Morrison led his small fleet in another attack run, but this time they used a different type of weapon. Dr. Chris Bennett had created devices that could open small wormholes inside enemy ships. "Lisa, target their flagship's engine room," Morrison ordered. "Wormhole torpedo armed and ready, Lisa," Grant replied. The weapon created a tiny hole in space that connected the inside of the alien ship to the heart of a nearby star. Plasma at millions of degrees poured through the opening, turning the mighty warship's engine room into a furnace. The flagship's lights flickered and died as its power systems overloaded. Fleet Marshal Corvani found himself standing in darkness as emergency lighting came online. "Damage report. Engine room destroyed, sir. Main power offline. We're running on backup systems only." On the surface of Earth, General Patricia Hayes was coordinating ground forces that were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Her soldiers carried personal versions of the reality-breaking weapons, making them nearly impossible to kill through conventional means. "Remember, if any alien ships land on Earth, we're ready for them," she told her troops. "Your personal shields can deflect energy weapons, and your rifles fire concentrated gravity. Aim for center mass and watch the enemy collapse into themselves." "Sergeant." Carl Stevens tested his equipment one more time. His armor could bend light around him, making him invisible to normal sensors. His weapon could fire bullets that grew heavier as they traveled, hitting targets with the force of artillery shells. "General, are we sure this equipment is safe for us to use?" "Define safe, Sergeant. We're fighting for the survival of our species using weapons that break reality. Nothing about this situation is safe. In space, the battle was turning into something the hegemony had never experienced. Their ships were being attacked by weapons they couldn't understand or counter. Captain Ellen Price's cruiser used a device that created gravity wells around enemy vessels, crushing them like tin cans. Captain Mark Thompson's battleship had been equipped with a weapon that could make enemy ships exist in multiple dimensions at once. When he fired it at an alien cruiser, the ship began tearing itself apart as different parts existed in different realities. "This is impossible," said the alien science officer on Corvani's flagship. "These humans are using technology that violates fundamental laws of physics. Matter cannot simply cease to exist. Time cannot be manipulated on this scale. Gravity cannot be concentrated into projectiles. Yet they are doing all of these things," Corvani replied grimly. "How do we fight an enemy that ignores the rules of reality?" Dr. Turner activated the final phase of humanity's defense plan. Hidden throughout the solar system were devices that could create a barrier around the entire star system. Nothing could enter or leave without human permission. "Maya, activate the dimensional locks," he ordered. Suddenly, the alien fleet found themselves trapped. Their faster-than-light drives stopped working. They couldn't jump away from the battle or call for reinforcements. "Sir, our FTL systems are non-functional," reported the alien navigator. "Something is preventing us from entering hyperspace." Admiral Blake smiled as he watched the tactical display. "Now they're trapped in here with us. Let's finish this." "Captain." Morrison received new orders to board the alien flagship and capture it intact. His crew prepared for a boarding action using equipment that would have seemed like magic to earlier generations of humans. "Danny, take us right up to their hull," Morrison ordered. "Lisa, prepare the phase torpedoes." The phase torpedoes didn't damage the alien ship. Instead, they created temporary holes in the hull that Morrison's boarding party could walk through. The Marines wore armor that let them move through solid matter and carried weapons that could stun enemies by stopping time around them. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Grant led the boarding party through the alien ship's corridors. The enemy soldiers they encountered fired energy weapons that passed harmlessly through the human armor. In return, the humans used guns that fired bullets made of compressed space-time, weapons that could knock enemies unconscious by briefly removing them from normal reality. Bridge secured, Lisa reported over the radio. We have prisoners, including their fleet commander. Fleet Marshal Corvani found himself face to face with Captain Morrison in his own command center. The human looked tired but determined, and he carried a weapon that seemed to bend light around itself. Your fleet is finished, Morrison told him. Your ships are trapped in our solar system and your weapons can't penetrate our defenses. But I have questions for you. I will tell you nothing, Primitive. Morrison activated a small device that created a bubble of distorted time around them. We have weapons that can make you experience 1,000 years in a single second, or make you age backwards until you cease to exist. We can remove you from reality entirely, or trap you in a dimension where you're the only thing that exists. So I'll ask again, what other fleets are coming to human space? The alien commander looked into Morrison's eyes and saw something that terrified him more than any weapon. He saw the absolute determination of a species that would do anything, break any law of physics, violate any rule of reality, to survive. There are no other fleets, Corvani said quietly. This was our entire regional force. We thought it would be enough. It wasn't, Morrison replied, and now your empire is going to learn what happens when you threaten humanity. On Earth, President Foster received reports from across the solar system. The alien fleet was defeated, their ships captured or destroyed by weapons that shouldn't exist. But she knew this was only the beginning. Dr. Sullivan, how quickly can we mass-produce these new weapons? Give us 6 months and we can arm every human ship and soldier in space with reality-breaking technology. Do it, and start working on bigger versions. If there are other alien empires out there, they need to know that humanity is no longer prey. The battle for Earth was over, but the war for humanity's place in the galaxy had just begun. 3 months after the battle for Earth, the galaxy had changed forever. The mighty hegemony empire, which had ruled thousands of worlds for centuries, was collapsing. Their surviving ships fled to the edge of known space, carrying terrifying stories about the humans and their impossible weapons. Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to admiral, stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the Defiance. The ship was 10 times larger than his old vessel, and armed with weapons that could delete entire fleets from existence. He was leading humanity's first exploration mission beyond their original borders. Admiral, we're approaching the Zephyrian system, reported his navigator, Danny Walsh. Long-range scans show multiple inhabited planets. Any signs of hegemony forces? Negative, sir. The system appears to be defended by local ships only. Morrison nodded. The Zephyrians had been slaves of the hegemony for over 200 years. Now they were free, but they didn't know what to expect from their liberators. On the planet below, Queen Zara of the Zephyrians watched the human ships approach with a mixture of hope and fear. Her people looked like tall, graceful insects with shimmering wings, and they had dreamed of freedom for generations. Your Majesty, the humans are requesting permission to land, said her advisor. They say they come in peace. And if they don't, if they're just new conquerors, then we fight as we always have. But these are the people who destroyed the hegemony. Perhaps they're different. Admiral Morrison landed on the planet with a small diplomatic team. When he met Queen Zara in her crystal palace, he made humanity's position clear. We're not here to conquer your world, he told her. We're here to make sure no one else conquers it either. The hegemony is finished. But there are other empires out there. If they threaten you, they'll have to deal with us. And what do you want in return? Morrison smiled. Nothing. We learned something important during our war with the hegemony. The galaxy is full of bullies who think might makes right. We've decided to prove them wrong. But not everyone in the galaxy welcomed humanity's new role. On the distant world of Corthan Prime, Emperor Thex gathered his war council. The Corthan Empire had been rivals of the hegemony for thousands of years, and they saw humanity's victory as an opportunity to expand their own territory. These humans destroyed the hegemony fleet using unknown technology, said General Vrak. But they're still a young species. They can't have many of these superweapons. How many ships do they have? Asked the Emperor. Our spies report fewer. Then 1,000 vessels. The hegemony had 10 times that number. Emperor Thex nodded confidently. Then we will crush them with overwhelming numbers. Prepare the Grand Fleet. We will show the galaxy that the Korthan Empire is the new dominant power. On Earth, President Amanda Foster was meeting with her expanded cabinet. The war had changed everything about human society. Dr. Kate Sullivan now headed the Department of Applied Impossibilities, the government agency responsible for developing reality-breaking technology. How many of our new weapons can we produce per month? Foster asked. With the new factories we've built, we can produce 1,000 reality disruptors per month, Sullivan replied. We're also working on larger versions that can affect entire star systems. And our ship construction? Admiral Ryan Blake, now head of the Terran Space Command, answered. We're building ships faster than ever before. Each new vessel is equipped with weapons that can manipulate gravity, time, and space itself. But we're still outnumbered by the major galactic powers. Then we need to make sure numbers don't matter, Foster said. What's the status of Project Godslayer? Dr. Alex Turner, now Director of Advanced Weapons Research, looked uncomfortable. The prototype is complete, but Madam President, this weapon is beyond dangerous. It can destroy entire solar systems by making their stars collapse into black holes. And you're sure it works? We tested it on an uninhabited system. The star, all its planets, everything simply vanished. There's nothing left but empty space. Foster felt a chill run down her spine. How many can we build? 1 per year, maybe 2. The resources required are enormous. Build them anyway. If other empires want to threaten humanity, they need to understand the consequences. Meanwhile, Admiral Morrison was continuing his diplomatic mission. He visited the crystalline Vorthan, who communicated through light patterns, and the gas-dwelling Nexari, who lived in the clouds of their world. Each species had been conquered by the hegemony at some point, and each welcomed humanity's protection. But not all encounters were peaceful. When Morrison's fleet reached the Sarkin system, they found a hegemony remnant force trying to reclaim their former territory. The aliens had taken the local population hostage and demanded that humanity leave the system. This is Admiral Morrison of the Terran Republic, he broadcast to the enemy ships. Release the hostages and surrender, or face the consequences. The hegemony commander laughed. You have 12 ships, human. We have 50. You cannot win. Morrison's response was brief. We don't need to win. We just need to delete you. The battle lasted 15 minutes. When it was over, 47 alien ships had simply ceased to exist, and the 3 survivors were begging for mercy. The hostages were freed unharmed, and the Sarkin people began to understand what kind of protectors they now had. News of the battle spread across the galaxy through hidden communication networks. The message was clear. Humanity didn't negotiate with those who threatened innocent lives. They simply removed the threat from existence. Emperor Thex received the report in his throne room on Korthan Prime. His confidence began to waver as he realized the humans weren't just lucky. They had technology that could make his entire fleet disappear. Perhaps we should reconsider our attack, suggested General Vrak. These humans seem more dangerous than we thought. Nonsense, Thex replied, though his voice lacked conviction. We will proceed as planned. Prepare the Grand Fleet. But even as he spoke, a message arrived from the edge of Korthan space. Human. Ships had appeared in 3 different systems simultaneously, each carrying the same message. Admiral Morrison's face appeared on screens across the Korthan Empire. This is Admiral Morrison of the Terran Republic. We know you're planning to attack. Human space, we're here to give you a choice. Stand down your fleets and leave us alone, or face the same fate as the hegemony. You dare threaten the Korthan Empire? Emperor Thex demanded. We're not threatening you, Morrison replied calmly. We're warning you. We've tried being reasonable. We've tried being peaceful. But we learned something during our war with the hegemony. Sometimes the only language bullies understand is overwhelming force. To demonstrate his point, Morrison activated one of his ship's weapons. A nearby uninhabited moon simply vanished, leaving behind only empty space. That moon had a mass of 10 billion tons. Morrison continued. It no longer exists. Not destroyed, not broken apart. It never existed in the first place. This is what happens to those who threaten humanity or our allies. Emperor Thek stared at the empty space where the moon had been. His grand fleet suddenly seemed very small and fragile. We have no quarrel with humanity, he said quietly. Good, Morrison replied. Keep it that way. As human ships disappeared from Korthan space, the Emperor sat alone in his throne room, wondering how the galaxy had changed so quickly. For thousands of years, the rule had been simple. The strong conquered the weak. Now, a young species had changed the rules entirely. On Earth, President Foster received reports from across the galaxy. Former hegemony territories were joining the Terran Republic for protection. Other empires were avoiding human space entirely. The balance of power had shifted completely. We've become what we never wanted to be, she told her advisors. The galaxy's dominant military power. Is that necessarily bad? Asked Dr. Sullivan. We're using our power to protect others, not conquer them. For now, Foster replied. But power changes people. And we have more power than any species in galactic history. Admiral Morrison returned to Earth with news from the frontier. Humanity's territory was expanding not through conquest, but through voluntary alliance. Dozens of species were asking for protection from the Terran Republic. We're not building an empire, he reported to the president. We're building something new, a galaxy where the strong protect the weak instead of exploiting them. And if other empires challenge us? Morrison's expression hardened. Then they'll learn what the hegemony learned. Humanity doesn't surrender. We don't negotiate with tyrants, and we don't forgive those who threaten innocent lives. The meeting was interrupted by an urgent message from deep space. A new alien fleet had appeared at the edge of human territory, demanding humanity's surrender. Morrison smiled grimly as he prepared to respond. Patch me through to their flagship. The alien commander appeared on screen, his face full of arrogant confidence. Humans, you will submit to the Vegan Empire immediately, or face annihilation. Morrison's reply was broadcast across the galaxy. We tried being reasonable once. You won't like what we've become since then. As human ships began appearing throughout the galaxy, carrying weapons that could delete entire fleets from existence, the remaining empires finally understood the new reality. Humanity had become something unprecedented, a species that treated the laws of physics as suggestions and used impossible technology to enforce their will. Became